The moment his best friend plunged into the raging floodwaters, Arthur Pennington's heart stopped. It was a suicidal leap into a churning brown monster of a river. He watched in pure horror as his loyal bloodhound, Winston, was swallowed by the current, a final desperate act that made no sense. But what Arthur didn't know, what he couldn't possibly see from the shore, was that Winston wasn't dying. He was fighting. He was fighting to save a life that held an impossible secret, because deep within that deadly current was a tiny drowning king. Just that morning, things were different, so very different. Arthur and Winston, they shared a quiet, unspoken bond. A bond forged over a decade of shared sunrises and lonely silent patrols. To Arthur, Winston wasn't just a dog. No, he was his shadow, his confidant in the quiet woods, his anchor in the vast, sometimes overwhelming solitude of the mountains. Arthur, a park warden nearing his retirement, he knew every trail, every tree, every secret the ancient forest held. His hands, they were weathered. His face, a living map of countless seasons. But his eyes, they held a gentle, deep kindness, a kindness that shone brightest whenever they rested on his canine companion. Their days, they followed a peaceful rhythm, a rhythm of duty and of companionship. They would check the trail cameras, clear away fallen branches, and sometimes just sit together on the high ridges, sharing a simple sandwich as they watched the hawks circle in an endless blue sky. Winston, with his long drooping ears and those soulful knowing eyes, he was a local legend. Calm, steady, and unfathomably brave. He was the heart of the small ranger station, a comforting solid presence for all who knew him. But the sky, it had been growing heavy for days. A deep bruised purple color that promised nothing but trouble. The whispers of the wind soon turned into a deafening roar, and the heavens finally opened up. It wasn't just rain, it was a deluge, a biblical flood, the kind that turns gentle familiar creeks into roaring unrecognizable monsters. The river, their old friend, it had become a churning violent beast, tearing ancient trees from their roots and swallowing entire sections of the riverbank. Arthur was in his sturdy Park Service truck, trying to navigate a flooded service road, trying to check on a landslide area. Winston sat in the passenger seat, not calm as usual, but tense. Every muscle in his body was rigid, his nose pressed hard against the glass, his low whines barely audible over the deafening storm. Then, suddenly, Winston erupted. A deep, frantic bark, a sound that Arthur had never ever heard from his steady friend. He slammed on the brakes, the heavy truck skidding dangerously in the slick mud. "What is it, boy? What in the world do you see?" Arthur squinted, peering through the blinding sheets of rain, seeing nothing but brown, churning chaos. And before Arthur could even process what was happening, before he could utter a single word, Winston launched himself. He scrambled over Arthur's lap, pushed the partially open window with his powerful head, and leaped out into the heart of the storm. "Winston, no!" Arthur's shout, it was swallowed by a deafening crack of thunder. He could only watch, in absolute horror, as his best friend, a blur of brown and white, charged directly towards the raging river, and plunged into the deadly swirling current. Arthur's heart, it simply stopped. He scrambled out of the truck, slipping, falling in the thick mud, his mind screaming a single silent word: no. He ran to the edge of the collapsing bank, his eyes frantically scanning the violent water, expecting, fearing, the absolute worst. And then, through the rain, he saw him. Winston. He was fighting the current, fighting it with every ounce of his strength, his powerful legs churning, his head held high above the waves. But he was not alone. Clamped gently, so gently, but firmly, in his powerful jaws, was a small, terrified creature. A tiny soaked ball of golden fur, with wide, panicked blue eyes. It was a cougar kitten, a mountain lion cub, no bigger than Winston's own head. It was so exhausted, its struggles were feeble. A tiny life, on the verge of being extinguished. Winston wasn't just swimming, he was battling a giant. The current dragged them under, then they'd resurface, the dog gasping for precious air, but never, not once, loosening his grip on the life he held. Arthur ran along the bank, shouting encouragement, his voice cracking with emotion and fear. "Hold on, Winston. You can do it, boy. Bring him home." The entire world narrowed to that single desperate struggle. One loyal dog, one tiny cub, and one impossible river. After what felt like an eternity, Winston's paws found purchase in the thick, sucking mud. He dragged himself, and his fragile cargo, onto the bank. He collapsed from sheer exhaustion, shivering violently, but he refused to release the cub. not until it was safely on solid ground. Arthur rushed to them, pulling them both further from the water's hungry edge, his own hands trembling uncontrollably. He wrapped his own jacket around the tiny shivering kitten and a thermal blanket around his heroic exhausted dog. At the veterinary clinic, hours later, the news came. And it was a miracle. Aside from complete exhaustion and a few minor scrapes, Winston was fine. The cougar cub, he was weak, suffering from hypothermia, but he was alive. He had been separated from his mother by the flood, a lone, helpless orphan, in a deadly storm. Arthur was given special permission to oversee the cub's recovery at a secluded enclosure at the ranger station. He decided to name him River. In the beginning, River was terrified, hiding in the corner, hissing at any who came near. But Winston, he seemed to understand. He would lie down patiently, just outside the enclosure, for hours and hours and hours, letting out soft, comforting rumbles. Day after day, he was there, a silent, loyal guardian. Then, one morning, the little cub, he hesitantly crept forward. He sniffed the big dog through the fence, and then, he let out a tiny chuff and rubbed his head against the wire, as close to his rescuer as he could possibly get. From that single moment, an unbreakable, unbelievable bond was formed. The months that followed, they were simply magical. Winston and River became inseparable, a truly unbelievable pair. They played, they chased, they napped together in the warm sun, a giant bloodhound and a growing mountain lion, two brothers from entirely different worlds. Arthur documented it all, his old heart filled with a joy he hadn't felt in years. But he always knew this day would come. It had to. River was growing fast. His paws became huge, his muscles powerful and sleek. The call of the wild, it was growing stronger in him every day. The time had come for him to return to his true home, a vast wildlife preserve, hundreds of miles away, where he could grow to be the king he was born to be. The day of his departure, it was heavy with a quiet, unspoken sadness. The transport vehicle arrived. Arthur brought Winston for one final goodbye. The young cougar, now powerful and majestic, immediately ran to the fence. He and Winston, they touched noses, whining softly to one another. River rubbed his head against the fence, one last time, a gesture of profound gratitude and of love. Winston, he let out a long, mournful howl as the cage door closed, a sound that echoed through the mountains, a king's farewell to his savior. As the truck disappeared, a small speck on the long dirt road, Arthur knelt down. Slowly, he put his arm around Winston. The big dog rested his head on the old man's knee, his soulful eyes still fixed on the horizon. They stood there together, watching the empty road, two silent heroes of the Appalachian wilderness. Arthur knew, deep in his soul, that he had witnessed something truly special, a testament to the fact that courage and love know no species. In the heart of a devastating storm, a loyal dog had not only saved a life, he had also reminded an old man, and all of us, that the most extraordinary friendships can be found in the most unexpected of places, and somewhere, far, far away, deep in the heart of the wild, a king roams free, and he forever carries the memory of the gentle giant who gave him a second chance at life.